Hello there, my friends. Hare Krishna. Hope you're well. Because of some technical difficulties, we are re-recording this reading, previously done on July 9th. We'll be continuing our reading of the teachings of Lord Caitanya, but first we'll take a brief look at Lord Caitanya's Shikshastika, verse number 6, then read from the teachings of Lord Caitanya. We're on page 67 of the PDF, chapter 1. The link for that is below. All right, we'll go ahead and get started reading the Shikshastika. Number 6. So these are the verses that Lord Caitanya wrote down, and this is all that we have left of his writing. So he writes, "O my Lord, when shall my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly while I chant your holy name? When will my words be choked up when uttering the holy name? And when will all the holes of hair on my body have eruptions by the recitation of your name?" So Bhaktiville Thakur has written some reflections on this verse, on all the Shikshastika verses. And his question that arises from this is, what are the external symptoms of perfection? So this verse is Abhideya and Sadhya, the process and the goal of devotional life. So Abhideya is the process of devotional life, and actually all the verses describe the Abhideya Tattva, the principle of devotional life. These verses 6 and 7 describe Bhava Bhakti, the ecstasy and love, and verses 6 through 8 deal with Sadhya, the goal, the perfectional stage of Bhakti, which culminates in Prema, or devotional love, or divine love, So what are these symptoms? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in this connection in his Bhajana Rahasya, chapter 6, verse 14, after the awakening of bhava, ecstatic love, within the heart, when one becomes deeply absorbed in thinking of Krishna, sometimes tears come to the eyes, sometimes one laughs, sometimes one becomes overjoyed with deep ecstasy, sometimes one speaks in an extraordinary manner, sometimes one dances or sings, sometimes one experiences great happiness by a direct perception of Krishna, and sometimes one becomes silent at heart by witnessing the pastimes of the Lord. So there you have it, the external symptoms of perfection. So in our book, we're reading Teachings of Lord Caitanya. We're on page 67 of the PDF. And Srila Prabhupada has been discussing the offenses, the 10 kinds of offenses. So we're not going to backtrack all the way to the beginning, but we'll just start here on the first full paragraph of this page. When the plant of devotional service is growing, there is still another chance of disturbance. Along with the growth of the plant of devotional service, there are other plants also growing. They are material desires. When one is advanced in devotional service, it is natural that many persons will come to the devotee for becoming his disciples and will offer him some material gains. So if a person becomes attracted by the increased number of disciples and the material conveniences offered by the disciples, and forgets his duty as a bona fide spiritual master, that is another disturbance in the growth of the plant of devotional service. It may be that, by taking advantage of material convenience, one becomes addicted to enjoy the material comforts of life. Another disadvantage is to desire liberation. Another disadvantage is to be neglectful of the restrictions or prohibitions. The prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in the association of women or illicit sex life. One should not indulge in intoxication. One should not eat anything other than Krishna Prasad, food offered to Krishna. And one should not take part in gambling. These are the restrictions for devotional service. And if one does not follow these principles strictly, then there may be a severe disturbance in the discharge of devotional service. So let me just add a little note here where he says one should not indulge in the association of women or illicit sex life. So he's speaking to men about women. So the same would be for women, the association of men, or if you're not interested in women, women interested in other women, or men interested in other men, the idea is that you're not distracted by illicit sex life. So let me move on to the next paragraph. Another disturbing element is to aspire after material name and fame by discharging devotional service. If one is not particularly careful, then by the process of watering the plant of devotional service, other unnecessary plants, as described above, may grow, and that may hamper the progress of devotional service. The idea is that, by the watering process, these unnecessary plants grow very luxuriantly, and the gardener does not see the impediments offered to the main plant of devotional service. It is the duty of the neophyte devotee to cut out all the unnecessary plants grown by the watering process. In other words, if one is careful against the growth of unnecessary plants, then the main plant grows luxuriantly and reaches the ultimate goal, the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan. To reach the ultimate goal, the Goloka Vrindavan planet, is the real result of devotional service, the real fruit grown of the plant of devotional service. When the living entity engaged in such devotional service relishes that fruit of love of Godhead, then he forgets all other ritualistic activities, religiousness for improvements in economic conditions, satisfaction of the senses, and the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence. There are many phases of spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss, such as performance of the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the execution of austerities and pious duties, and the practice of mystic yoga. They have their different respective results to be enjoyed by the performer, but all these results may appear to be very glittering, only so long as one is not elevated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. There is a nice comparison in this connection, that a person bitten by a serpent remains unconscious so long as there is no smelling of the particular type of medicine recommended. As soon as the bitten person smells that particular type of medicine, however, he at once becomes conscious, and no longer can he remain unconscious by the poisonous effects. Love of Godhead can be awakened from the dormant position by executing pure devotional service. And what is that devotional service? What are its symptoms? These were all described by Lord Caitanya to Rupa Goswami. In the matter of pure devotional service, there cannot be any other desire than to become advanced in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshiping any demigods or any other form of Krishna, or to indulge in speculative empiric philosophy, or to be engaged in fruitive activities. One should be freed from all these contaminations. One should accept only favorable things for keeping the body and soul together, not for increasing the demands of the body. Only the bare necessities of the body should be accepted, and putting the bodily necessities second, one should primarily cultivate Krishna consciousness by chanting the holy name of God. Pure devotional service means to engage all the senses that we have in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. So we think that this body belongs to a particular society, or a particular country, or a particular family. That is the designative understanding of the body. And similarly, the senses belong to the body. And if the senses act under such a designative concept of life, family-wise, society-wise, or nation-wise, then one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. The senses must be purified. One should purely understand that he belongs to Krishna. His life belongs to Krishna. His identity is eternal servitorship to Krishna. And in this way, if one engages his senses in the service of the Lord, that is called pure devotional service. A pure devotee accepts transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but does not accept any kinds of liberation for his personal sense gratification. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 29th Chapter, verses 10 through 12 as follows. Lord Kapila explains in those verses about the pure nature of devotional service, that as soon as a pure devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, at once his mind flows toward the Lord, as the water of the Ganges flows down toward the sea. Such spontaneous attraction of the devotee's mind to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the significance of pure devotional service. Devotional service, engagement in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any cause and without being hampered by any material impediment, is called pure devotion. The pure devotee does not desire to live in the same planet with the Personality of Godhead. He does not desire the same opulence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he does not desire to have the same form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not desire to live along with him side by side. Neither does he desire at any time to merge into the existence of the Supreme Person, even if these things are offered by God to the devotee. The thing is that a devotee is so much absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord that he has no time to think of any other benefit beyond his engagement. Just as an ordinary materialistic businessman, when he is absorbed in his business, does not think of any other thing, so a pure devotee, when he is engaged in the pure devotional service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement. By these symptoms alone, one can understand to be elevated to the topmost position of devotional service. And it is with such transcendental loving service alone that one can surpass the influence of Maya and can relish pure love of Godhead. So long as one has the desire for material benefit or for liberation, which are called the two witches of allurement, one cannot relish the taste of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. There are 3 stages of devotional service. The first stage is called the beginner's cultivation stage, and the second is called the realization of the service, and the third, the supreme stage, is called Attainment of Love of Godhead. There are 9 different methods for cultivating devotional service, such as hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. All these processes are employed in the neophyte stage of cultivation. If one is engaged in the matter of chanting and hearing with devotion and faith, then gradually his material misgivings become vanquished. Gradually his faith in devotional service increases more and more, and such stages assure him a higher perfectional position. Thus one becomes firmly fixed, increases the taste for it, becomes attached to it, and feels an ecstasy which is called the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. Attainment of ecstasy is produced by execution of the cultivation of devotional service. Such attainment, when still more developed by that same process of hearing and chanting, gradually becomes thickened, and it assumes the name of love of Godhead. In the stage of transcendental love of God, there are further developments, which are known as transcendental affection, emotion, ecstasy, and extreme intense attachment. These are technically known as raga, anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava. These are technical terms. The process is exemplified by the gradual thickness of sugar candy juice. Sugar candy juice in the first stage is liquid, and when by evaporation it becomes thicker and thicker, it becomes molasses, then granules, then sugar, then rock candy, and so on. These are different stages of the liquid sugar juice, and similarly, there are different stages of the development of transcendental love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one is situated on the transcendental platform, that stage is called steady. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform, the practice or love of Godhead may not be steady. One may fall down, but when one is situated on the transcendental platform, he becomes steady, and there is no fear of falling down. The stage of understanding is technically called Sthaya Bhava. There are still further developments stepping forward from the position of Sthaya Bhava, and these are called Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvic, and Vyabhichari Bhava. And when these 4 ingredients are added to the steadfast position of pure transcendental life, that is called exchange of rasa, or transcendental flavor. This exchange of loving reciprocation between the lover and the beloved is generally called Krishna Bhakti Rasa, the transcendental taste of exchanging loving sentiments between the devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we must know that this development of the transcendental loving exchange of flavors stands on the steadfast position of Sthaya Bhava, as explained before. The basic principle of Vibhava is Sthaya Bhava, and the other activities are auxiliary assistance for the development of transcendental love. The ecstasy of transcendental love has 2 components, the content and the cause of the excitement. The context is also divided into 2 parts, the subject and the object. The exchange of devotional service is the subject, and Krishna is the object. And the transcendental qualities of Krishna are the causes of excitement. This means that a devotee becomes excited to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being enamored by the transcendental qualities of Krishna. The Mayavadi philosophers say that the absolute truth is without specific qualities, and the Vaishnava philosophers say that being without qualities, nirguna, means that the absolute truth has no material qualities. but that the spiritual qualities are so great and so enchanting that even liberated persons become attracted by the Supreme Lord. This fact is very nicely explained in the Atmarama verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are already situated in self-realization are also attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna. That means Krishna's qualities are not material. They are pure and simple transcendental qualities. The highest stage of ecstasy can be divided into 13 transcendental activities, which are as follows: 1. Dancing. 2. Rolling on the floor. 3. Singing. 4. Clapping. 5. Bristling of the body. 6. Thundering. 7. Yawning. 8. Breathing. 9. Forgetting social conventions. 10. Throwing down saliva. 11. Laughing. 12. Headache. 13. Coughing. All these 13 symptoms do not awake simultaneously or at one time, but they act according to the exchange of transcendental flavor. Sometimes one symptom is prominent, and at other times the other symptom is prominent. Transcendental flavor is also divided into 5. Principally, the initial stage is called Shantarati, appreciation of the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by persons who are liberated from the material contamination, but not exactly engaged in transcendental loving service. They are on the appreciative neutral stage. The second stage is when a person appreciates that he is everlastingly subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is everlastingly dependent on the causeless mercy of the Supreme Person. At that time, there is an awakening of natural affection, as a grown-up son becomes attracted with the father's benediction. At that stage, a living entity wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead instead of being engaged in the service of Maya, illusion. This stage is called Dasyarati. The next developed stage of transcendental love is called Sakyarati. Here, one associates with the Supreme on an equal level with love and respect. That stage is further developed in the matter of joking and in exchange of different relaxations by laughing and so forth. This is called fraternity with the personality of Godhead without any bondage. Practically, at that stage, one forgets his inferior position as a living entity, although he has the greatest respect for the Supreme Person. When the transcendental flavor or taste of fraternity is further developed, it is called Vatsalyarati, or filial affection. At that time, the living entity tries to be the parent of God. Instead of the Lord being worshipped, the living entity, as a parent of the Supreme Person, becomes the object of worship for the Supreme Person. Then the Lord depends on the mercy of such pure devotees. This is called Vatsalyarati. The Lord puts himself under the control of the devotee for being brought up nicely. Such a devotee attains to the position of embracing the Supreme Personality of Godhead or kissing his head. These are developments of parental, filial affection for the Supreme Lord. The next developed stage is called Midoriyarati, or the transcendental exchange of tastes between the lover and the beloved in conjugal love. At this stage of loving affairs, the damsels of Braj and Krishna glanced over one another in conjugal love. In that stage of transcendental loving service, there is an exchange of glancing and a movement of the eyebrows and an exchange of nice pleasing words and attractive smiling between one another. Besides the 5 primary reciprocations of flavor, there are 7 secondary reciprocations, consisting of laughing, wonderful vision, chivalry, pitiableness, anger, ghastliness, and devastation. Bhishma, for example, exchanged with Krishna in the transcendental flavor of chivalry. Hiranyakashipu experienced an exchange of the ghastly and devastating feature of the Supreme Lord. The 5 primary rasas, or flavors, constantly remain within the heart of the pure devotee, and the other 7, which are secondary, sometimes appear and disappear, and enrich the existing flavors and tastes. After enriching the primary flavors, they disappear. The example of Shanta Bhaktas, or Shanta devotees, are the 9 yogis, named Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayana, Havirota, Hotra, Dravid or Drumal, Chamas, and Karabhajan. The 4 Kumaras, great sages, are Sanika, Sanandan, Sanat Kumar, and Sanatana. Examples of devotees in the transcendental mode of servitorship are in the Gokula, Raktak, Chitrik, Patrik. All these are servants of Krishna. In Dwarka, there are Daruka, and in the Vaikuntha planets there is Hanuman and other persons. Devotees in friendship are like Sridham in Vrindavan, and Bhima and Arjuna in Dwarka, or on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So far as those in paternal love with Krishna are concerned, the devotees are his mother, father, uncle, and similar relatives. In conjugal love, the devotees are first the damsels of Braj, Vrindavan, and the queens and goddesses of fortune in Dwarka. No one can count how many they are. Attachment for Krishna is also of 2 kinds. One kind of attachment is with awe and veneration. There is a lack of freedom in such attachments, which are exhibited in Mathura and Vaikuntha planets. In such abodes of the Lord, the flavor of transcendental loving service is restricted. But in the Gokula Vrindavan, the exchange of loving is freely done, and the cowherd boys and the damsels of Vrindavan, although they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, do not show awe and veneration on account of their thick and thin relationship and great intimacy with him. Out of these 5 principal transcendental tastes, awe and veneration are sometimes impediments to perceiving the Lord's greatness, or in the matter of service to the Lord. But in the matter of friendship and paternal affection, and in conjugal love, such awe and veneration is reduced. For example, when Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, they prayed to the Lord with awe and veneration, because they understood that the Supreme Lord Krishna, or Vishnu, had appeared before them as their little child. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 44th chapter, verse 51. Devaki and Vasudeva, after knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to pray to him, although he was present as their child. Similarly, when Arjuna saw the universal form of the Lord, he was also afraid, and he begged pardon, because in his dealings with Krishna as an intimate friend, he had engaged in such unceremonious behavior with him. This is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that Arjuna prayed, "My dear Krishna, I have sometimes insulted you, calling you my dear friend Krishna, without knowing the greatness of your inconceivable power. Therefore, please forgive me, because I was mad to address you like a common friend or a common man." Similarly, when Lord Krishna was playing jokes on Rukmini, she thought Krishna might leave her, and therefore she was very much afraid and became perturbed. At that time, Rukmini was fanning Krishna, and as soon as she was afraid that Krishna would leave, the fan fell down from her hand, and the hairs on her head became scattered. As a plantain tree falls by a blast of windy air, so she became almost unconscious and fell down. But so far as Yashoda, Krishna's mother in Vrindavan, is concerned, it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 8th chapter, 36th verse, that the personality of Godhead was worshipped by all the Vedas and Upanishads, and the Sankhya system of philosophy, and all such authorized scriptures, that the personality of Godhead was accepted as if born in her belly. In the same Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 9th chapter, 12th verse, it is stated that Mother Yashoda bound the boy Krishna with a rope, as if he was the son born of her body, and appeared just like an ordinary child with a material body. Similarly, the description of Krishna's being treated as an ordinary man is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 18th chapter, 24th verse, when he was defeated by his friends, the cowherd boys. Krishna carried Sridham on his shoulders. So we'll stop right there, and we'll continue again next week. Thank you very much for coming. It's great to see you all. Take care. Hare Krishna.